Korean War in 1950. The Korean War started on June 25, 1950 and ended on July 27, 1953. The conflict began with North Korea's invasion attempt of South Korea. North Korea was supported by the Soviet Union and China, while South Korea received support from the United States and some other countries. The United Nations Security Council called on North Korea to cease the attack and decided to support South Korea. As a result of the decision taken by the United Nations Security Council, a coalition of international forces sided with South Korea. The United States provided the largest support to this coalition. President Harry S. Truman ordered American troops to be sent to Korea to fight and defend South Korea. There were significant loss of life and property during the conflict. The Korean War was a 3-year conflict that ended with the intervention of China. The People's Republic of China became involved in the war to aid North Korea. China's intervention shifted the balance of power and made the continuation of the war more difficult. Therefore, ceasefire negotiations were held between the parties, and the Korean War ended in 1953. At the end of the conflict, the Korean Peninsula was divided into 2 separate countries, North Korea and South Korea. At the end of the Korean War, the Korean Democratic People's Republic North Korea and the Republic of Korea South Korea were established. The Korean War was considered a significant conflict during the Cold War period. This conflict increased tensions between the Eastern Bloc and the Western Bloc. The conflict between the 2 Koreas did not come to a definitive end after the conclusion of the Korean War and is still part of an ongoing situation. Today, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea North Korea and the Republic of Korea South Korea still exist as separate states. During the Korean War, the civilian population was also severely affected by the conflict and invasion. According to some sources, approximately 3 million civilians were killed or injured during the Korean War. There are allegations that chemical weapons were used in the Korean War. The United Nations Security Council issued a resolution condemning the use of chemical weapons. Large-scale destruction and economic damages occurred on the Korean Peninsula during the war. Efforts were initiated for the reconstruction and improvement of the Korean Peninsula at the end of the war. The consequences of the Korean War are still felt today, and issues regarding the security and stability of the Korean Peninsula continue. Military tactics and technological advancements in Korea also played a significant role during the war. The Korean War was characterized by a series of front lines and conflict zones. The unified command created by the United Nations Security Council provided coordination and management during the war. During the Korean War, in addition to numerous conflicts and battles between the parties, non-combat negotiations also took place. According to some sources, there are claims that prisoners of war were treated poorly during the Korean War. Such allegations of mistreatment have been investigated by international human rights organizations. Many civilian and military aid organizations operated during and after the war to provide medical and humanitarian aid. The Korean War represented a period of intense propaganda activities. The parties tried to influence the international community in line with their own interests. The consequences and effects of the Korean War had a long-lasting impact on geopolitical balances and power relations in the region. The Korean War was not only marked by military conflicts, but also intense diplomatic efforts. The conflict led to significant changes in international relations. The consequences of the Korean War also influenced other conflicts during the Cold War period. The Korean War was one of the first conflicts in which the military forces of the United Nations actively intervened. This was an example of the United Nations' role in maintaining peace and security. The Korean War is a conflict examined within the framework of international law. There are allegations that international law was not respected during the war. During the Korean War, there was a potential risk of nuclear war between China and the United States. However, there was no direct nuclear confrontation between the parties. As a result of the Korean War, a demilitarized zone known as the Border Corridor was established between North Korea and South Korea. Today, the Korean Demilitarized Zone continues to exist with the aim of reducing the potential for conflict between the two countries. Propaganda and information warfare were also intense during the Korean War. The parties to the war made efforts to spread their own views and influence enemy public opinion. The Korean War is a conflict that offers important lessons in military strategy. The war has inspired studies on military training, logistics, and tactics. During the conflict, there were also civilian-based intelligence and resistance activities.